Lucky you.
36 best
Tuned
holes in
into
golf.
Alternate Shots podcast,
Barney's Army.
where we talk about golf,
Sandy.
poker,
James Bond.
horse racing,
Double.
classic movies.
Zenyatta.
We have no script.
Down the stretch they
And
come.
we are glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope everybody will let us know what they think, but leave profanity out of it.
As you can see, we're not professionals. Billy Regan, Bob Williams over here. We do have some experience around golf. Both of us have been playing more than 50 or 60 years. Much of it out here on these 36 holes that we're going to talk about. Perhaps the greatest 36 holes of golf. I have a little bit of experience in gambling and some experience and a lot of experience in movies. 0 or 1% experience in horse racing. Everything I know about horse racing, I've learned from my friend Billy.
Oh, I taught you everything I know, and you know nothing. So, I've been playing golf for 63 years now. I started when I was 7 years old, and I've had the luck and privilege to be playing at Winged Foot for the last 25 years or so. And if you can see this on your screen, this is hole number 1 west. Probably got to be in the top hardest starting holes on any golf course. The back tees, so they tell me.
450.
Excuse me, 450.
350, man. We could even get home in 2 from there.
Right. But I'm taking their word for it because I only walk past the back tees. And I don't ever stop there. But as my friend Doc once told me, you know you're in trouble when you have 5 pre-swing thoughts and they all begin with don't.
That's right. This isn't designed just to talk about the Fuzzy Zellers and the Jeff Ogilvies and the Bobby Jones who have played from the tips and won their U.S. Open here. But it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, Charlie Daniels played here. Probably the only person in the history of Winged Foot to ever play in blue jeans and cowboy boots. But he came down here one Saturday afternoon on this tee. And the tee that we're looking at, sort of, 20, 30 yards in front of you, is about the white tee. And you want to hit it at that tall hardwood tree out there that kind of looks like an A, right? Up there.
Like that Christmas tree out there.
Christmas tree up there. That's right center, right?
Yeah, and you have the driving range to your right.
Which shouldn't influence you at all.
No, it shouldn't. There used to be a tree down the left side near that little one that's now gone, but that sort of affected the tee shot. But like you say, Fuzzy Zeller and
the first set of shadows in the fairway, that's about 200 yards off the tee.
Right.
The next set of shadows is about 280. And just to the left of that was a really imposing hardwood tree, 80, 90 feet in the air.
Yeah.
That if you drew it, our friend Graham Cracker used to draw the ball in there, I think, a few times, and you got nothing.
The common misunderstanding about trees on golf courses, in my opinion, is, when we lost that tree, you figured, oh no, we opened the hole up. You don't want to be over there, tree or no tree. That's right. That's a bad spot to be. Even if the rough is playing in a not U.S. Open rough, but in playable rough, you're still in trouble over there, because what you can see if you look straight through there, you can barely see it as a bunker, which is the bane of the hole for a lot of people. It's probably 40 or 50 yards short of the green, maybe 60 yards short of the green. That thing traps you like crazy. So you want your tee shot, like you said, over by that right-hand Christmas tree.
Talked about the driving range. This is a vanilla picture we're looking at. There's not a person in this picture. Right. That's not what we see on Saturdays or even Wednesday afternoons.
No. What we see is along that path, 8 or 12 guys with their hands on their hips, wishing they were in front of you.
That's right.
It's not a good place to hit a bad shot.
So years ago, I would say back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a guy that always brought 3 guests up here, and he wasn't that good a golfer. His 3 guests were good. And he said, well, let's play in the back tee. And at the time, this is back in the 70s, I know it. There was an older member. Everybody loved him. His name was Doc Z, Dr. Zimmerman. He used to get a caddy in his 90s, and he had an old-fashioned, at Winged Foot, you had to have a medical condition to have a cart. Right. Even in those days, a lot of guys had their own cart. Drive the caddy down just to the right of these trees off the tee, and on the other side is the range. And he'd have the caddy tee the ball up, and he's over there hitting ball after ball, and that was his day. He also lived in the club. He'd come Friday and stay Friday and Saturday night. There was 1 or 2 rooms up in the top of that old clubhouse we'll talk about sometime. And he's over there minding his own business, and these guys are teeing up over there. And some guy hits a buzz, and if you can look at, and he just buzzed it through those trees. Boom! I said, oh, you killed Doc Zimmerman. You had to kill him. And then I knew he didn't kill him because he came around with his golf cart and he said, what kind of idiot hits from the back tees and hits a poor old 95-year-old guy hitting balls
on the driving range?
And he let them have it. But this is an imposing tee shot, right?
Absolutely. It's very intimidating. And again, it's not like it's probably the easiest shot you're going to have on the hole.
Yeah. And if you are able to get it at that tree, so now you got somewhere between, from the white tees, maybe what, 170 into the wind, maybe 190, 200. Go back and explain that. Even a 170-yard shot, you got to carry that fairway bunker that's 30 yards on the backside of the fairway bunker from the green. Right. And that thing's 20 yards long, right?
20 yards, across. And, it's not a bad place to be right over that bunker because the green, as we'll discuss, is extremely difficult. I would venture to say no matter how good a putter you are, depending on where the pin is, I could put a ball on there 20 feet from the pin in almost any direction and challenge you to 2-putt it. So it's very imposing, the second shot. If you're fortunate enough or good enough to hit it onto the green, you still aren't finished.
No, ask Jack Nicklaus in the 74 Open, right? He busts his drive right up there at the middle of the fairway and hits some sort of middle iron on the green above the hole, right?
Right.
At an 18-footer for birdie. He walks off the hole 4-putting and makes a 6.
Makes a 6.
Sure. And now he is the greatest golfer, clearly, of all time. At that point in time, maybe even still today's one of the, if not Tiger, but at that time, nobody was better.
It's one of the two of them. There's no question.
Not the guests you bring up there, and they put 2 shots on the green. They hit a driver and a good 4-iron. They nut it to the middle of the green, and then they walk off with a 5 or 6. What are they telling you?
And they have the added pressure as guests of thinking they may not get another chance at this. they're at the member's whim as to whether or not they can come back. That put pressure on. Before I was a member, and a friend of mine would take me as a guest, he assured me, don't kill yourself here. I promise I'll bring you back, which took some of the heat off me. But after 4 or 5 times here, I was like, this is enough. I want to play here every day.
My friend Tommy, Tommy, the former president of the club.
Yeah.
Tommy, his secret was he had 3 guests and he used to entertain a lot. And he'd bring them up and he'd bring them right into the pro shop. And he said, pick out a shirt.
Get that over with.
Get that over with. Now you got a shirt. Relax the rest of the time. He said, Bobby, it worked every time. So I did that in a member guest one time. We played the West Course in the fall. There are leaves everywhere. And it was really hard. It was 54, 56 degrees, wind coming from the west to us, hardest wind, right? And these guys that I brought from Prudential were throwing 9-irons in the hole, chipping it in, making 55-foot putts because of that secret. Because as you say, your friend said to you the best thing in the world. Everybody that you don't say that to does say, hey, this is my one shot. This is my bucket list. I don't want to screw it up. So what do they do on the 20-foot birdie putt in the first hole? They drive it 7 or 8 feet by because they want to impress you, Billy. This is not that hard a hole. I just made 3. And then they say, uh-oh. Yeah. And they miss it. And it comes back and they've got a 6 or a 7 after they hit the green in regulation. And your brother, Neil, who used to know every blade of grass on these greens.
Yeah, Neil, God bless him. May he rest in peace. What he used to do with guests, before I get to his green thing, was he would challenge his guests to make different putts from different areas, and if they could do it, or 2-putt or whatever his challenge was, he would tell them, a shirt in the pro shop if you can 2-putt this. So he engaged them that way.
Yeah, you got him to bear down on that. So a 5 is certainly a very good score on this hole, especially if the wind is into you. Yep.
Except for the disappointment of never being able to brag about making a birdie and the enjoyment of making a par. If I'm playing for money with guys and you give me a 5 on the first hole, let's go to the second tee.
Yeah, if you're playing low handicap, like
I'll take my 5 for 4 and let's move on.
Stevie, I'm not here, Jose, even if somebody calls checking in for me, that's Jose, is our famous locker room man. We have Jesus upstairs and Jose. The guys that work at Wingfoot, the gals that work at Wingfoot are
priceless. He told me to tell you he's not here.
Yeah, he told me to tell you he's not here. But even if you're playing with Stevie, what's he sporting, about a 4 handicap? And you would get in the shot with him. This is the third shot hole. So you're getting a 5 for a 4. It's just, and then as you see this hole, one thing that's noticeable to point out, I think it was in 2000, not sure if it was the PGA in 97 or the Open in 2006. Somewhere back then, when Wingfoot held an Open, we brought in the fairways to, tighten up. Our fairways are pretty tight, alleys. But they brought them in sometime between 97 and 2006 just to leave them, leave them that way. So they are U.S. Open width, depth, the rough. First of all, the rough, when the USGA comes, they cut it down to about 2.5 inches on a day in and day out basis from when it starts growing in May all the way through September. Billy, describe kind of rough that we're playing in.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Alistair McKenzie, who designed Augusta and Cypress Point and stuff like that. He was dead set against tough rough because he said it inhibits you from the free swing, which is what you're out there for, because you're trying to steer it away from the rough. Not only that, you're looking for balls in the rough. In my opinion, when when the USGA decided not to keep building the rough up, what it does is it invites the player who's in the rough to try a shot he might not have tried otherwise. Yeah. So instead of just pitching a wedge back into a safe place, he thinks maybe I can get a 5-iron on this thing.
Mickelson. Mickelson.
Well, Mickelson for one, but another. I'll remember.
But you don't recall though. Nick Mickelson messed up the 18th hole in the 2006 Open. But if you go back and look at the hole by hole, he tried to hit a hybrid or something like that from about 160 on 5 West in deep rough, and I think he hit it all of 8 or 9 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a shot there that made him not win.
Again, it brings the game back to between the ears. You're not. If you're in 6-inch rough, you have one choice: get your sand wedge out and get it back into where you can hit it. If you're in 2.5-inch rough, again, I think I can hit this. I do it now, even in the rough we have out there on a regular day. I think I can get a club on this. I'm wrong.
We're going to tease, not going to tell you the Billy Casper story. Everybody knows about the Billy Casper story in 1959, where he laid up and one putted on 3 West 4 days in a row. And I think he averaged 28 putts, which is unheard of at Wingfoot. We'll talk about the other story that you and I know about how many 1 putts he did. But before we leave this picture and talking about this is our first hole at Wingfoot. We're going to go through all of them. Maybe going to go through the grill room. Maybe going to go through the practice green, the driving range. Any spot at Wingfoot is we can go talk about that little pond on 4 where we have so many great pictures, and the water tower.
And we might go back around again if we play well enough. We might do an emergency 36.
Yeah, we're not going to take you through shot by shot because that's sort of boring. But before we leave this, let's not forget this tree over here in the picture on the right, just off to the right of the cart path. And a little further down, it's no more than 50, 60 yards, the group of trees on the left.
Yeah.
It's no more apparent than when you're playing the hole coming in on the left. It's the 9th green. And we'll talk about that in a future episode. How many times are you on 9 when you hear people, or you're down the 9th fairway and you hear people buzzing into those trees on the left or hitting on the right? Those are in your window of misses, right?
Absolutely.
What a way to start. So you might get on in 4 and still 3-putt. And that's happened. And very good golfers do that too.
Yeah, you don't want to make mistakes early on this hole because you got a lot of work when you get on the green. And we're giving the green a little bit short shrift. There are so many pin placements on the green, and it's so severe in so many areas. But at the same time, if you like golf, you'll love this green. And my brother you go out there with him, he would have made you putt from all over the place and learned all these different shots. There are so many ways to play some of the putts on that green. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I look at the green as if it's another club. It's another tool. You can use the contours of that green once you learn it. It's all positioning. It's just an unbelievable good starting hole.
Yeah, and there's very few flat spots on any of the 36 holes at Wingfoot, correct?
But what there are opportunities to actually make people smile and laugh, because It's unbelievable. You can play a ball 15, 20 feet offline of a hole and just watch it go up, make a turn, trickle down, not stop. It brings smiles to people's faces, and that's the brilliance of that kind of design.
One other thing that I want you to tell people about, say you hit past that fairway bunker and you're 20 yards off the green in the right in the fairway. Your club of choice is pretty much, as you're walking up there, is already made. You're going to take out your putter, right?
Absolutely, every time.
And you're not alone. I mean, good chippers are always going to chip it. I get it. But
the only time I'm not hitting,
yeah.
The only time I'm not hitting the putter there is if there's a wager that doesn't allow me to hit the putt. Like, right. I bet you can't hit a wedge there, but otherwise, I think it would be no doubt about it.
Because you got to judge that shot to get it up onto that first slope, or else you're coming right back to where you are 50 feet away. Do the story. Many years ago, I was at the Mirage in Vegas, and it was my first real encounter with playing strangers in a poker room, 1-2 no limit, you know, the Cadillac of poker, right? And I told you this story because I wanted to show you how afraid scared I was the first time I ever played. And you, having had more experience with me, would have cleaned up on that table, because there were so many loose and aggressive players, lags people, right? They call them lags, loose and aggressive card players. I got a pair of fives, and I'm in for $2, and some guy is the effrontery to make it 14. And I look at my fives again. I said, "Oh my God, that's not worth 14," and I fold. And what did I tell you? The very next thing, he throws down like 8-5-5. So I flopped quads, and that was my introduction to poker. And I said, "Bob, you got to open up a little bit. Pairs are good. Play them, whatever the cost is." Story up from where the one you were talking to me about the other day in a casino card room.
Well, what you've talked about, there's a real common intersection between starting to play poker and playing golf. When you play golf with guys you've never played with before, you're afraid you're going to do this, that, and the other thing. After a few holes, you realize they're as bad as you are. There's nothing you can do that they haven't done, so you relax. And that's true in card rooms too. It takes a while to learn the systems and things like that. One of my first times up at Foxwoods, I was like you. I'm like trying to figure this out, and I know how to play because I've been playing online. I know the game, but this is my first encounter with, you know, real strangers. And bang, I get pocket aces, and I'm like, this is great. So I make a timid raise. I get re-raised. I just call because I'm like, what can he be re-raising me with? I'm new at this. And we went back and forth through the hand. Ended up both of us all in. I turn over my pocket aces. He turns over his pocket aces.
Oh.
I was like, wow. I thought that only happened on Party Poker. So there was a hand with Negreanu against Gus Hansen, and Negreanu has pocket sixes. Hansen has pocket fives, and the flop comes 5, 6, 10, and the turn comes 5. So now Negreanu's got sixes full of fives, and Hansen has 4 fives. And the bets go back and forth, and Hansen goes all in. And Daniel Negreanu is so good. He took maybe 10 minutes going, "You got pocket? Do you have pocket?" You know, most people snap call. You have a full boat.
Not kid poker. He thought about. Did he fold?
He did not fold, but he came very close to folding.
He figured it out though.
And he figured it out. One of the scariest things about no limit poker is the alluring curiosity. The time where you know you're beat, but you're still going to have to prove it to yourself and throw your money in there. That can be very expensive. That's why the great players can fold hands. They can fold that full house when they think they're beat. They don't need to prove it and then have the story like about how bad beat they were.
Well, exactly. Those of us, you and I, play more volume than a lot of the guys that we play in our home game. You know, like
right.
Sock Drawer, he plays once a week. He's California, so he can't get to, you know, whereas Lost in Larchmont,
yeah,
he'll play if he's available. He's ready to go, right?
But they're playing the same guys all the time,
and the volume doesn't mean that much to them. But there are you get the variances, and they hurt, right?
Some of the boys up in the Mohegan Sun, Foxwood area, the Plumber, Teddy. These guys play every day. Every single day. So they'll sit there with the patience of a saint, and they'll make money. And because they know they can play, they'll play tomorrow, they'll play the next day. you and me even, and then even worse guys who go less than us, we want to play. I want to play these hands because I have to go home tonight. You know, I don't get to sit here 3-4 days in a row playing poker.
That's
so
right.
I want to get my hands in.
That's absolutely right. You know, we're playing, and it's almost like a one-time only event. And as you become a better poker player, it's more of a journey. It's more, you're not emotional.
Right.
You know,
it's sort of like knowing you'll be invited back to Wingfoot
on the movies. But this horse, Zenyatta, you told me about, I just still am in awe. I know this is almost like a child to you as you saw this horse race. You probably didn't miss a single race and saw many in person, right?
She lost only once, and my youngest daughter cried that day when she lost. That's how attached everybody got through me. The horse was the most exciting horse I've ever seen. She wasn't Secretariat, but she was 19-1 in her life or something like that, including winning the Breeders' Cup Classic. I recommend anybody listening to this, Google Zenyatta Breeders' Cup Classic and watch that race. You will not believe what this horse does in that race. And the horse demonstrated all kinds of intelligence, tapping her foot, playing with the audience, just a lovely, lovely animal.
Zenyatta, was it the backstretch, the last quarter of a mile or something?
She was a stretch runner. She was a stretch runner, and in that Breeders' Cup Classic where she beat the boys, the announcer, Trevor Denman, who was the track announcer for decades, literally was like, well, let's see, where's Zenyatta now? If she's going to win this, she's going to have to do blah, blah, and ends up with like, this is unbelievable, you know?
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable. I stood up. I was like, oh my God. I've never to this day, before or after, seen a race like that, and I never will. And I've seen, believe me, I've been watching the races since '77 when my good friend Watson, who I will always remember, turned me on to two things: horse racing and the Allman Brothers. That's 100% strike rate as far as
that doesn't get better. That's a pretty good quinella. But
similar than human athletes, I think, because their sizes are not that different. But the males are historically, you know, derbies. There's only been 2 fillies that have won the Kentucky Derby, Regret and Genuine Risk. There's been a couple others that have tried. But Zenyatta was as good as any male ever, and maybe as big. She was a big horse. And if you watch that Breeders' Cup that I'm suggesting strongly that people watch her at the beginning of the race, because she's in last place. She's looking around at all the horses. She's looking left and looking right, like, let me size this all up. It's an awesome thing. And I've showed this race to people who are not into horse racing, and their jaw drops. You can't believe she can win the race. So
it's if you're just slightly interested in horse racing, it's well worth it. Like Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth used to play there. I remember a story your brother told me, that it was a day, there was a game in the afternoon or something like that. And they asked his buddy, said, do you want to play? He said, yeah, let's play about 10. Past the pro shop, and there's 18 West. We'll talk about 18 West later, but these guys, they show up, they're all the members. Babe's a guest. Who's walking up 18? I say, I think that's Babe. He comes up on the green. They said, we thought we were going to play at 10. It was about 9:30, quarter of 10. He said, yeah, I just had to get a warm-up round in. He went out and played with them another 18.
Yeah.
And then he played a Yankee game.
Made some home runs.
He was over there. He was over there all the time.
That archway where Pat Collins and David Zona, when you walk through that archway, it's almost like that scene in The Wizard of Oz where she walks out of the house and it's color.
Yes.
It's all of a sudden it's like a little funnel that you walk through, and then boom.
Yeah, the color of Wingfoot explodes.
It's all there. It's all there. It's just gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
But let's talk just a bit about movies, because you and I like some of the classic directors and producers, you know, guys like, you know, John Huston and Howard Hawks and, oh gosh, Frank Capra, Orson Welles. Well, we're going into, it's now December. We're going, right. If I only had one director, it would be Hitchcock. I can watch those movies and you'll learn from them.
See, with me, movies is, I always tell people there's probably 200 movies in my top 10 favorites, because it's one leads to another. and everybody's seen It's a Wonderful Life 1,000 times. There's a movie called Christmas in Connecticut that's fun and lighthearted. You know, Sidney Greenstreet and Barbara Stanwyck. They're just fun, easygoing movies. There's no stress in them. That's what's so wonderful about the old Hollywood. They could get deep and send messages, and All Quiet on the Western Front, or I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. They could have those, you know, disturbing premises, but they could also just let you escape, which is something that is missing from today's movies. And if you go back in the old days and look at the supporting casts of these movies, these people were unbelievable. Or you even look at the stars. Take a star like Edward G. Robinson. He's the farthest thing from a handsome man, but maybe one of the best actors of all time. He could play anything.
And his size wasn't more than what, 5'6",
something like that. Yeah, they was all little. Him, Bogart, Cagney, they were all squirts.
It was a place to be, and we'll talk in other episodes about Bing Crosby playing there, about Bob Hope playing there, Evel Knievel playing there, and there's
Bobby
good
Krieger.
stories. Yeah, Mickey Rooney. That was one of the worst turn downs of a golf invitation I've ever had. Mickey Rooney asked me to play. He says, well, let's go out and play. He played with somebody in the morning. I was in the locker room. He said, let's go out and play. I had to go back to work. I was working at IBM those days. And, I didn't feel like I was doing the right thing. So I went back to work. I should have played golf with Mickey Rooney.
I walked through that archway one day. I was in a hurry to get to the first tee, and I bumped headlong into Fuzzy Zeller. And he's like, what's your hurry, son? I said, I got a big money game on the first tee. He says, can I join you? I was like, of course you can, of course. But he was only kidding. But he was a very friendly. You can't help it there. If you're complaining about something at Winged Foot, then there's absolutely nothing else wrong in your life, because, there's nothing wrong. If you didn't like your hamburger, tough.
And this is for people that are still looking to play Winged Foot, or they haven't played it in a long time. And Winged Foot, there's been some great changes over the years. The crux of Tillinghast is never more visible than right now, certainly at the greens. And all the modern conveniences with sub-air systems to make the place playable minutes after a washout. Study up on Winged Foot when you come to Winged Foot. You got to read whatever you can about Winged Foot. And when you drive up through the gates, you're going to have it's going to be, like going and meeting a celebrity or a president. It's going to be kind of a bone, chilling kind of experience for you. And you might as well do your research, because it's going to be that much more interesting.
And especially now, after they, every course went through these redesign things, they changed some greens, but all of a sudden Winged Foot got the awareness, and they put it back to the way Tillinghast made it, because it was so good. There were some greens that they redid because they thought they were too severe, and then they realized, no. This is the way it was meant to be. Yeah. And the guy knew what he was doing. Tillinghast, there's a lot of stories about him, and he was a class act. He was a good writer. My brother, who was a historian and a collector of all these things, I've gone through some of his stuff, and you find letters from Tillinghast to Donald Ross, and just the language and the respect they had for each other, which was, it's sort of gone from this day and age.
He designed golf courses. Nobody maybe better. Some is good. I mean, you look at, he's got 60 golf courses, I think, where they've held big championships on them.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. I know that we can learn. Again, you guys will find us. Thanks for joining us today.
Billy Harmon.
We really appreciate your
Double
feedback.
Indemnity.
And please subscribe to the show and hit
Claude
the bell
Harmon.
icon so you get notified.
Movie classics.
New episodes.
Mark Gable.
Hit them hard and hit them off.
Best 36 holes.